All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have Colleen here, going to be speaking on shooting space. We do plan probably about an hour like we have the last couple ones. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A box that is located at the bottom of your screen. We hope all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. All of you are doing well and are safe. Lou Corsetti is with us also tonight. I'm going to turn it over to him before Colleen gets going. He has a few words, but again, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Lou, Colleen, for being here, and we hope you enjoy the presentation.
Great, thank you, Jeremy. Everybody, welcome to the call. Again, Colleen is going to run through shooting space, which is a very important component of the women's game. But I wanted to thank Jeremy Hernandez and the FHSAA to allow us to put these on. We've gotten very good positive feedback about these webinars. And I did want to just mention to everybody, if you need me for anything, I'll put my contact info in the chat, but leverage me. I'm the regional director for the Southeast and responsible for the Midwest and Southwest for USA Lacrosse. And we're doing some exciting things, and this is one of them. So if you need me for anything, obviously, please reach out by email or phone, and enjoy the shooting space presentation by Colleen. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Lou. Okay, for those of you that don't know, my name's Colleen Spiegelhoff. I am a national lead official originally from upstate New York, a transplant in Florida for about 1.5 years now. I am a national clinician for US Lacrosse and the chair of the Women's Officials Educational Development Team at USA Lacrosse. We're the people that put together all the educational materials that trainers use throughout the country. Tonight, as Lou said and Jeremy said, I'm going to be talking to you about shooting space. Shooting space is a point of emphasis this year for the NFHS. It has been for several years, and it's basically because it's such a difficult rule to understand and to call correctly. And so hopefully we're going to work through it tonight, and we'll give you some tools to help you do just that. So here's the rule. You can read it yourself, but basically what we want to focus on tonight is not so much the rule, but as why it's so tough and so difficult to understand and difficult to call correctly. What we've over the years come to realize is that you really need to work on putting yourself in the best position, both physically and mentally, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, to get it right. You have to understand the rule. You have to understand the parameters around it. You have to understand what you need to have, the criteria that you have to have for there to be shooting space to be able to call it. But you also need to worry about things like your positioning and your focus and your perspective to really understand the rule and to understand it correctly and to call it right. So when we're talking about the obstruction of free space to goal, the rule basically is a player can't guard the area from the ball to the goal circle so as to obstruct the free space to goal, to get in the way of that space. To obstruct is literally to be in the way of. And when we're talking about this, we're talking about obstructing it between the ball and the goal circle, not the player. So if I'm the ball carrier and my ball is on this side, my left side, but I have a player on my right side that may be in the lane, maybe in the edge of the lane of that shooting space lane in that free position, or excuse me, in that free space to goal. If the ball is on this side, that defender isn't necessarily in shooting space unless they are in between the ball and the goal circle, excuse me. So you really have to pay attention to where the ball is, and the ball's constantly moving. So that's one of the biggest things. It is also that it's between the ball and the goal circle, not the goal posts. Many people narrow that space, and when they're looking at the 2 posts of the goal itself. It's not that, it's a bigger space. It's the entire goal circle. So when you're creating that visual cone for yourself, that's where you want to be paying attention. And you can see as I'm going around here that it changes, that area changes. here it's really small because there's only a small area between the goal line extended and the top of the goal circle, as opposed to here where it's much bigger. So you really have to pay attention to the ball, to the sides of the goal circle, and where the ball is, where the ball carrier has the ball, to be the first thing you want to identify in shooting space. So then we're talking about the opportunity to shoot. If you are a defender and you're in that space, you are denying the, you're denying the attack the opportunity to shoot safely. It's dangerous for them to shoot right there. So if you're in the way and you're not marking up a player, which we'll talk about, then you are denying the opportunity to shoot and you're in shooting space. Basically, if you're there, you're encouraging shooting at a player. And we never want to encourage shooting at a player. Our job is to make that call before the attack takes the shot. So we have to be ball focused, but also defender aware. A lot of times we talk about in a 3-person system, we talk about that you're on ball, off ball, or you're ball aware and off ball. In this situation, you need to be aware of where the ball is, but you also need to be aware of the defenders, where the defenders are and what you're focusing on. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but those are the keys that we want to focus on for the definition of the rule. So why do we get it wrong? What are the problems? When we sort of break this down and we think about it, there are 3 things that affect this. The first is your positioning. If you're in a particular place, you may not be in the best place to see whether all the criteria is met to call shooting space. The second part is your viewpoint, and that's the position from which you're observing something. So if your positioning is off, then your viewpoint is probably off because you're not in the best position to be able to see things. So your viewpoint is skewed or not where it should be. And then the third thing is, what's your focus? What are you really paying attention to? What's the center, the thing that you're most focused on, your center of activity? If your focus is off, if you're not, if your positioning is off, then your viewpoint is off. If your viewpoint is off, then what you're focusing on is off. So all 3 of these things are interrelated in how to look at shooting space. But if one of them is off, most likely the other 2 are off as well. Now, what I'm going to show you tonight is actually sort of a sneak peek of a presentation that I'm doing for USA Lacrosse at the LaxCon convention in January 14th and 15th in Baltimore. I believe that all the sessions are going to be taped, so for those that can't make it, they'll see it. But what I did in creating this presentation is sort of take snippets from the presentation I'm doing there, and I'm just going to show you screenshots of it. It took a lot of work with my technical advisor, who's my 22-year-old robotic engineer son. And we sat down and we created a presentation that gives you a 360-degree view of shooting space. What he did for me was to create an area where I could set scenarios of players where I wanted them in the critical scoring area, marking up next to a player, etc. And then he allowed me the opportunity to turn the camera where I wanted to show what I wanted. So like I said, this is a little snippet of it. It's sort of a teaser, I guess, for you. So if you like this, you definitely should watch the presentation. But I think what we're doing and the focus on this, I think, is really something new, and it's looking at shooting space in a really different way, which I think is going to be very beneficial.
Before we
so
move
let's
on,
talk about positioning. From here, I'm a lead. I'm the lead official. There's a fast break here, and the blue player is the ball carrier. She's ready to shoot, and the red defender is clearly in shooting space. She's not making an attempt to get out of shooting space. Her feet are stationary, and the ball carrier is within the CSA. So we've got shooting space. If I change my positioning just slightly, and I'm offset is what we could talk about now. So I'm off the left shoulder. A lot of times when in training, we'll ask you to be offset towards the inside. So in this scenario, I'll be offset off her left shoulder. And I can see that there is an attack player down low. It's her teammate looking for a pass. So because that teammate's there, she's denying the ball carrier the opportunity to shoot. So that red player, even though she's stationary and not marked within a stick's length, is not in shooting space. Again, this, whoops, I went the wrong way. Sorry. This is the same picture. It is the exact same scenario from a different position. So if I'm here, I can't see that teammate and I'm not in a position to call shooting space. If I'm here and I'm offset, I can see that there's a teammate down there. I can see that the ball carrier doesn't have the opportunity to shoot safely. She would have the potential of hitting her own player. So I'm not going to make that call. Again, I swear to you, it's the same picture. So now let's move on to the next one. And this picture is a little skewed. I apologize. All of my people are in 2-dimension, but there is a person right here. This is my ball carrier right here. And this is the scenario that we're looking at. So when we talk about a 2-person system, a lot of officials tend to be behind or really wide as lead. They basically don't want to get too far ahead because then they have to run all the way down to the other end of the field. And they don't want to do that. So they officiate from sort of an outside and a higher position than they actually should be. And there are multiple problems with that in terms of not seeing fouls and not being able to identify things properly. But in the context of shooting space, if we're looking at it from that, if I'm the lead official in this position right here, what I'm seeing is that those 2 defenders are within a stick's length. They're pretty close to within a stick's length of the non-ball carrier. And so even though they may be in the lane, they're not in shooting space because they're marking up. If that ball carrier decided to shoot, and the defender that's furthest to the right, which would be this one right here, if this defender moved through and left the other defender down there, then we'd possibly have a shooting space violation. But from this angle, it appears that that low defender is close to being within a stick's length as well. And so maybe there isn't a shooting space to call. However, if you look at it from this angle, which is a lower angle that we'd want you to be on and basically gives you a much better idea of the space between the players, you can see that the low defender isn't anywhere near within a stick's length. From here, your perspective is blocked by the defender behind her and you're not really sure. From here, it's very clear. And again, with these still shots, I'm sorry, it's a little bit difficult, but if she was 3-dimensional, you could see that she's not within a stick's length. So if this was during live play, the problem with this is it's sort of static, as we say, but if it was during live play and the ball carrier had the opportunity to shoot, that low defender would definitely be in shooting space. Now, if they're moving, which most likely they would be, the teammate right here and this defender were probably moving out together. If they're moving out together, then she's going to be in shooting space, this low defender. If these teammates are moving out together and this these 2 are moving out together and this defender's moving with them, if she's a step behind them, if she's a step behind them right here, she still could be in shooting space because you can't double team a non-ball carrier. So even though it appears that this player right here might be the superstar of the team and we're going to double her the whole game and this is our defensive plan, win the championship with this one, but you can't double a non-ball defender, a non-ball carrier inside the critical scoring area. So if these 2 players moved out and this low defender was still there, we do have a shooting space violation. Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot one thing to tell you. Interestingly enough on this, and this is an old school term that still matters, this perspective from the official's perspective is on tangent. You're on tangent with the ball. You really can, even with my 2-dimensional people, you can see the space between the players, where when you're not on tangent with the ball, it's much harder. In this tangent positioning, you're on tangent with the ball. You're also going to see fouls from here other than shooting space. You're going to see a lot more being on tangent. So in training, we're constantly talking about being able to see this space, obviously, between the players. You see who committed the foul, who caused the contact, who tried to avoid the contact, who's trying to draw a foul, maybe with flopping, things like that. So with shooting space, the position from which you see something can tell you a lot about the potential for the foul too. So when you're talking about the viewpoint for shooting space, it really matters as well. So here we've got a fast break, and I apologize. I only realized this yesterday that I swapped it. Red is now on attack and blue is on defense. So just to keep you aware, the official is behind it. We're on a fast break. The official's behind, and the defender is running after the teammate, the attack player who's coming through the 8. So the defender's marking within a stick's length. The official's following him up, and there's no shooting space, right? Well, actually, no, not at all. In this instance, the trail official has a great angle to see that that defender is not marking within a stick's length and is therefore in shooting space. I know in a 2-person system, many times we tell officials just focus on the players on your side of the field in your area. Don't worry about making calls in the other one. But this is a prime example of when the trail official has a much better angle on a fast break than the lead official. It's really hard for the lead official to judge space right here, but here it's very easy for the trail official. Now, you don't want to constantly be calling in front of your partners, obviously, but in a situation like this, and especially in a fast break situation, your viewpoint can help make this call. It can make all the difference between a non-call here and an obvious call here. And just a reminder, but if you're going to make this call from the trail side, if you're going to come in as the trail official and you're going to make this call, you need to make it big. You need to blow the whistle and give a big, huge shooting space signal. You need to come in towards the play. You need to really sell the call. You might be further away, but your angle is better than your partner's. And so you have to come in and be confident in that selling that call and confident that you had the right call. All right. Oops, sorry. There we go. Okay, next one. Now blue is back on attack here just to really play with things. Sorry. But so the lead official on here is pretty high, or they're late getting in front of play, and this is what they see. If they're lower, closer to on tangent and in front of play and looking back at the ball and having the play come towards them, their viewpoint changes. And they can see the space between the players. The defender is not within a stick's length of the blue teammate, so the red defender is in shooting space. Now, if the ball carrier, passed that ball to her teammate, the defender would still be in shooting space because she's still not within a stick's length. And again, these pictures are static, and the game is constantly moving in shooting space. But being in the right position to see the play and the potential foul is really, really important. When you're here, you're not going to be able to see that low defender marking up, but you're not going to be able to see if she's marked up in time for this ball carrier and for the ball carrier to be ready to take the shot. And if you're wide, you're going to be able to see if the defender stays, if the teammate moves away, you're going to see that angle. Again, here's that one more time. Okay, so that brings me to the next factor in shooting space, which is this idea of focus. What are we looking at? Where's your focus? Sometimes we're so ball focused, especially as lead, that we miss all the other things that are going on that may affect a foul. And as lead, we need to take in so much more. It's a 2-person system, so you really are responsible for shooting space on your side. It's really easy, or easier, I should say, to talk about being off ball as trail, but lead has to be both on the ball and off ball in their area at the same time. If you're only focusing on the ball and the ball carrier, you're going to miss a shooting space on lead side. You have to expand your focus. You have to take in the bigger picture, as we always talk about. You have to look at more and be able to see the potential for a foul, not just what's happening around the ball carrier, but potentially who could be causing that shooting space foul down low, who's in front of the ball carrier, who maybe doesn't yet have a chance to shoot. If that ball carrier is coming in and is marked up and you don't think the opportunity is there, you still need to be aware of that low defender and what she's doing, and if she's marking up or if she's not marking up, and how that may affect the potential for shooting space in the future. When we're talking about the trail, it's it's easier to talk about being off ball, but then you have to say, well, what's the trail focusing on? Are they only watching the players on their side of the CSA, or are they scanning to see the whole CSA to see potential fouls develop? Again, you want to watch the players lower, closer to the goal circle, because they may be the ones in shooting space. The players that are engaging the ball carrier are probably within a stick's length. It's that second layer, that layer of low defenders, that are the ones that would cause this foul, and they're the ones that you need to focus on. Focus.
Hey, Colleen,
But-
before we move on, can we answer
Sure.
a couple questions real quick?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I can't see the questions, but I'm happy.
No
to
worries.
answer.
I'll read them to you.
Great.
Should we still be seeing if the ball carrier's hands and body are in a shooting position as part of the opportunity to shoot before calling shooting space?
Absolutely, we should. And I don't know where, I believe I talk about that later on, but yes, absolutely. The opportunity to shoot is not just that they have the ball and they're looking at the goal. Their hands have to be free to shoot. Their body has to be in a position to shoot. And as I said, I'll touch on it a little later, but yes, the hands free is a huge part. If the ball carrier is so tightly defended that by a double team, or just maybe a really good strong defender who moves really well and this player, the ball carrier, can't get her hands free, then she does not have the opportunity to shoot. So again, if you're the lead official and you're on ball, you need to not only be aware of where the ball is, you need to be aware of the player's positioning and the low defender. It's a lot to look at.
And then the second one, this came a little earlier. What happens when the player still shoots after the whistle?
Great question. There's a lot of things involved in that. So if the whistle is close to when the ball is released, then an official, preventative officiating would lead an official to say, hey, that player was in shooting space. If you see that, it's your obligation not to shoot. Is that a foul? No, not necessarily, because if we're late with our whistle and that player whose one job is to put the ball in the net sees an opportunity and takes that opportunity, and we haven't stopped them from taking that, then that's on us. We need to be quicker on our whistle. If they take that shot, you can definitely go up and say to them, hey, be careful, that low defender was there. Please don't take that shot in the future. I called the shooting space. I saw it. Please don't take that shot. That's the positive side of it. Unfortunately, the negative side of it is the player who gets the ball and is so excited because it's her first time on the field, and all she wants to do is just put that ball in the net and get all the accolades, and you blow the whistle and she takes 5 or 6 steps after that and still shoots. That definitely can be a dangerous propel. It's all, it's all relative and it's all in your perspective. But if the player is blatantly ignoring a whistle and then at an obvious time after the whistle has been blown takes the shot, then yes, you can consider a dangerous propel on that.
Awesome. Those are the two for right now.
Okay, great. Just jump in if you need to. Okay, so we're going back to this last photo. If I'm on, oops, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I think I just lost my, did I? Nope, we're good. Okay, sorry. If I'm the lead in this position, my focus needs to be on the ball carrier, obviously, but also on that low defender, on that red player. If I'm only watching the ball carrier, I may miss the shooting space by the defender, but obviously if I'm only watching the defender, there's a lot that could happen around the ball carrier. I only have 2 players on here. Usually there are 14 in there plus the goalie. So it's usually much more congested than this. But when I'm taking in the big picture as the lead, I'm not only looking at the ball carrier, but I'm looking everything around the ball carrier, like the players that would possibly cause a foul there. But I'm also looking at the defender and everything around that defender. And if that defender is has the opportunity or could be in shooting space, have they met all the criteria? Right here, there's no player marked up. There's nobody marking, or there's nobody close enough to her to relieve her of that, to give her an excuse for being where she is. So that's not okay. It's a focus that has to be bigger. It literally is widening your lens is what we talk about it. Instead of just focusing on the ball carrier, I'm going to widen my lens and see everything that's happening in the CSA to get that perspective. If on this scenario, and I don't have the picture, but if I'm the trail here, I should have that red defender on my radar too, because most likely if you see her direction, she came from the trail side and is cutting across to pick up that attack player. So if she came from my side of the CSA, I need to know at the point at which she might be in shooting space and be prepared to make that call. If she's trying to catch up to the defender that's up at the top of the 8, the teammate that's at the top of the 8, and that ball carrier now has the opportunity to shoot, she's around her teammate, she has a lane. If she's trying to catch up, that's not good enough. If she's in that area and hasn't marked up within a stick's length when the ball carrier has the opportunity to shoot, then that's it. Even if she's trying, she's working hard to get there, you make that call before the ball carrier takes the shot, and that's hopefully going to prevent a dangerous shot being taken. There was one other point I wanted to make on this one, and now I apologize. I'm drawing a blank, but we'll move on. I'm sure it'll come back to me. Okay, so this is the very first image that we had. And again, I'm a little offset on the left, so I can see that the defender red there is in shooting space and that the teammate is down below. If I'm only focusing on the red defender, if I'm just paying attention to that first player, I'm going to call her for shooting space because I'm like, she's not within a stick's length, she's not moving, she's stationary, the ball carrier wants to shoot, I'm going to call it. But if I look through that, and we call it sort of layers, like the Shrek, the layers of the onion. But if you look through all those layers to that player down low, and you look past the defender and focus on the low teammate, you realize you can't make the call. If that ball carrier wanted to shoot, she couldn't. Her teammate's in the way. So even though the defender is not where she should be, the teammate of the attack player is the one who's preventing you from making that call. So as I'm the official looking at this, the first thing I'm going to see is, oh, that defender's in shooting space. Before I blow the whistle, I'm looking past that defender to see whether or not there's anything behind her that might prevent me from making that call. I'm keeping my eyes on what's closer to the goal. I'm focusing on that, and that's what's going to help me decide what call needs to be made. So now let's review a couple situations where you might want to call shooting space, but you shouldn't, and because it isn't shooting space. The first one is if the ball carrier's position below the goal line extended. Basically, they don't have a shot. There's no way from there that they could put the ball into the goal. They have to be at least above, or even with, if not a step above the goal line extended for the call to be made. So the ball has to be above the goal line extended. Criteria number one. The ball has to be within the CSA for the official to even consider it. Excuse me. In this situation, if the defender backed up, if she was backpedaling and the attack player's coming in, as soon as that attack player steps into the CSA, if the defender isn't within a stick's length, the call needs to be made. But because the ball is outside, I'm not going to make that call yet. Again, I'm going to be focusing on where the ball is, but also where the defender is. And now I'm taking in another part of the focus, which is where's the line, where's the 12-meter arc. So I'm not just ball focused, I'm not just defender focused, I'm taking in the bigger picture. I've got a wider lens, and I'm paying attention to all the criteria for this before I am going to blow my whistle to make the call. Okay, so double teaming. If the player with the ball is being so well marked, and this is to the question Jeremy mentioned about the hands free, if they're being so well marked that they don't have an opportunity to shoot, then the call must not be made. Now, this isn't to say that every time there's a double team, it's never shooting space, because that's not necessarily the case. Attack players are so good at dodging nowadays, and it can literally take maybe about a half a second to get around the first defender. The second defender's to her right, and next thing you know, she's stepping in, and this defender who hasn't moved is in shooting space. So if you're if you're watching for the double team, you're paying attention to the double team and watching for the potential for fouls, but you're also paying attention to where those hands are. If those hands are free, if the arms are free, if her body is in a position where she can step and take a shot at the goal, then that would be when you'd call it. If you're too focused on the double team and too focused on watching the fouls, which many of us, that happens because a double team is really tight, and the attack player usually, many times in high school, they get a little panicky and they don't know what they're going to do because there are two players on them and they just, they want to go to goal, but they're not sure if they have the opportunity. So you're watching for a dangerous follow through. You're watching through a charge. You're watching for fouls that the defense commits. But if you're only watching that, then you're not focusing on the bigger picture, which is the low defender. Once that attack player beats that double, if she beats that double, you have to be ready to make that call. Now, all this said, this is really hard. A lot of us struggle. I would say we all struggle with this at one time or another, because when you're the lead, you know that most of the fouls that take place are going to take place in the critical scoring area, and a double team is a prime time to worry about fouls. It's not that we want your focus to come off the ball. You have to be on ball. You have to be focused. It's just that we want you to be aware of the potential for a different foul that might happen if this attack player beats the double team. This also, in this scenario, if the defender's here, and I don't have them here, but your trail is going to be over on this side. If the defender's here, this also can be another time that the trail official, if they're in the correct position, can be helpful in making that call. These two defenders are right on ball. If that attack player comes around, the trail official here may have a perfect space to see the space between here and to see that this defender is in shooting space. Another time when it's not shooting space, I guess is what we'll say. If the defender is in the free space to goal, is in that lane, in that area, but they are not there on their own, they are being drawn through by an attack player, it's not a violation. So what do I mean by that? There's an attack player that starts over here and she decides, oops, I'm sorry. She decides that she's going to cut through. There we go. Sorry. She decides that she's going to cut through across here. Well, the defender's going to go with her. The defender doesn't have to let her go without defending. As long as that defender's within a stick's length, she's going to follow that attack player through, and she's going to hopefully prevent her from getting a pass or taking a shot. If at that time the ball carrier is looking to shoot, she does not have the opportunity. This is two players that are legally marked. The defender is legally marking the attacker. She's allowed to be there, and the attacker is legally allowed to pass through. So there's no call. There's no call to be made. There's no problem with this. If, however, this defender, when the attack player is coming through, if this defender stops or hesitates or in any way makes an attempt to go towards the ball carrier and the attack player continues through, cutting through the 8, that's when you're going to make that call. That's when the call should be made. So remember that we're talking about a stick's length. So what does it mean to be within a stick's length? A stick is across is 43.25 to 52 and a half, or sorry, to 35 and a half. 43.25 to 35 and a half inches. So we're giving them an extra half inch. 36 inches is how close that they should be. Within a stick's length is very close. It is not within a stick's length plus my arm, which is another 36 inches. It has to be within 36 inches. It's a tight markup. Now, does that mean that when the attacker comes to, starts to cut through, if the defender most likely is going to be a step behind, can they quickly catch up? Yes. But if the attack player goes through the 8 and the defender is hanging way behind and is waiting and reaching, which is what a lot of them do, they'll stick their stick out like, oh, I'm marking that girl that's way over there, but I'm watching the ball carrier to my left. That's not okay. That would be a call. They have to be actively marking within a stick's length. So things to look for when we're making the call. So you've gone through you identify this player that you think is in shooting space, and now we've got to do something about it. We've got to make this call. The first thing you want to do is identify the player, like note their number. Okay, 6 red, she's in shooting space. Now that my next task in all of this is make sure the ball carrier is in the CSA. Okay, I think she's in shooting space. Now I'm going to have to double check. Maybe I'm off ball as trail. I'm going to have to take a quick look and see where's the ball carrier. Is she within the CSA? If she is, now I'm prepared to make that call. I'm ready. I've got my whistle. I'm ready to make that call. Third part of that is the free hands that we talked about earlier. Is she so closely marked or double teamed or anything that she couldn't make the shot? She couldn't release the ball because her hands would hit another player. That would be a dangerous follow through, or her stick would hit another player. That would be a dangerous follow through. Look for the idea. Can they actually move the cross? Can they take a shot? If they can't take a shot, then I'm not making that call. If the shot is possible, then I've checked that off my list, and now I'm looking at the rest. Is the ball carrier's body in the position to shoot? High school players, well, some of them would love to tell you differently, rarely shoot from the 12-meter arc, the 12-meter fan, excuse me. Their body position has to push them in closer. So if she's standing static on the 12-meter, her body is not moving towards goal, I'm not going to make that call yet. If she's starting to drive towards goal, then I'm going to consider making that call if all the other criteria is there. Is the ball carrier looking to pass? So are they looking to get rid of the ball? Now, it's not their eyes. Years ago, we used to say, are they looking to shoot? And that was the criteria. Well, with the advent of the behind the back and through the legs and every other kind of shot these girls could take now, that's no longer the criteria. But you can see from a body position if a player is going to goal and is intending to shoot, or if they're looking to pass off. If their shoulders are turned away from the goal and their body is facing one of their teammates, again, if you open your focus and you see that teammate calling for the ball, you realize that she's not going to make the shot. Her thought isn't to make the shot. It's her thought to look to pass that off to a teammate. If she's not actively going to goal, then we're not going to make that call. And again, the opportunity, if all of those things are in place, is the opportunity there to shoot safely? Can they take the shot safely and not endanger anyone else except that player who may be in shooting space? Well, then we're going to whistle it. So now if you went through all of these things in the time that it just took me to explain them to you, the girl has probably already taken the shot. Somebody might have gotten hit, or a coach is yelling at you because you missed shooting space. You have to do this really, really quickly. And all I can tell you is the more often you do it, the quicker it becomes. You start to go down that checklist sooner. You start to pay attention to the defender coming in, rolling the circle. I'm sorry, the teammate, the attacker teammate rolling the circle and coming in from the side. You start to pick up, you get feelers on her a little bit quicker. You start to pay attention to the fact that while this one player is double teamed often, she's often able to beat the double team. And so I'm going to be more aware of her ability to beat the double team and pay attention to that low defender maybe a little bit sooner than I normally would. Yes, it's a lot. There's a lot of criteria in it, but the more you do it, the more you'll start to understand that, again, your positioning, your viewpoint, and your focus help you check off all these things off the box and help you identify when it is or is not shooting space. And just a reminder, I'm making the call here. If I'm the trail official and I'm making that call, I'm going to come in big because I'm further away from the play, but I want to make sure everybody knows. I'm going to come in big. I'm going to give my lead official the number of the player who was in shooting space. I'm going to identify the hash mark. If the player was in the 8, the hash mark on which the free position is going to be awarded, and the lead will set that all up. I'll make sure, I'll help that my side, make sure my side of the penalty zone is clear, and that's a whistle start. If I'm the lead and I'm making that, most of that is going to be my job. I'm going to come in, tell the player who was in shooting space to go behind, set the free position on the hash mark that I want it to be on. I'm going to then make sure my half of the penalty zone is cleared, and I'm going to double check. I'm going to look, physically make eye contact with my trail official to make sure that they're ready, that their side of the arc is cleared and they're ready and they're good to go. And then I will whistle to start that. So again, I really do hope you have the opportunity to see the 360 degrees of shooting space. This was only still shots, but you can sort of imagine moving that camera around and how neat it is. I think it's going to be a really good presentation. I think it will help open people's eyes to how important these ideas of positioning and viewpoint and focus are. And I hope you get a chance to see that. I'm happy to answer any questions on this. I would say that the more lacrosse you watch, the more lacrosse you officiate, the better you will become at this. And you will all have your aha moment when you see that low defender in shooting space and say to yourself, now this is what Colleen was talking about. This is what I should be focusing on. So that's it. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Hey, Colleen, this is Lou. I have a question,
Yes.
maybe for the group that, do you have any like tips of the trade to kind of figure this out like quickly? Not so much a presentation, but things that you tell other people on your crew, hey, look, this is gonna, if this happens, I don't know, something that you could share with the group tonight, like how you go about, making a call, the proper call, on where because positioning obviously is the most important because that
Yes.
helps you with it. But any tips of the trade?
I would say for more experienced officials, when I work with new officials, what I will say, if I have to make a call, and again, shooting space is a safety call. This is much more important physically than any other call that we make. We want to keep the players safe. That's our job. So as an experienced official, many times I have to step in and make a shooting space call in front of, and I don't want to say in front of, but I step in and make a shooting space call on the field with a less experienced partner. When I go to that partner after I've made that call and after things have happened, my first question to them would be, what did you see? What were you looking at? What did you see from your perspective? And they'd usually say, I don't know, or what did you see? I'm not sure. And I would say, what I saw was the low defender behind that first defender, or what I saw was this. Did you see that? And many times, no, because they're ball focused, they didn't see it. So I would say, what I want you to do next time is open up your view, open up that viewfinder, look deeper, look past the ball carrier to see who's behind that ball carrier. Many times, if you're given, so I don't want to say that's really specific instruction, but if it's a prompt that you're given to say, hey, this is what I should be looking at, that might help you sort of, generate a thought in your mind while play is actually happening. A lot of times when I teach off ball, on ball, I'll tell people, talk to yourself. I'll say, off ball, now I'm on ball, off ball, where's the ball? Or, off ball, find the ball, whatever. It's the same type of idea. Defender, low defender, or ball carrier, defender, is there another defender? So it's the same idea. Get your checklist going early, but if you can help a newer official know what to focus on and help them by saying, basically telling them what you saw to make that call, it might help them make it in the future.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Colleen, we did have another question from one of the attendees. It's in regards to if there was a late shooting space call, but the shot goes in, does that still count?
It depends. Sorry. So a late shooting space call, if it's late on the official, if the official called it and late and the ball went in, then I would say that yes, that goal counts. Most likely though, if you're making a shooting space call and the ball goes in and it is anywhere near the same time as the foul itself, you're going to set up the free position. You're not going to allow that goal to count because hopefully you blew the whistle before the ball was released.
Thank you. That's the only question we had so far. If there's any more that come in, I can definitely relay them to you, but right now there's nothing else. So I guess we'll give a little bit of time to see if anybody has any more questions. If not, then I thank you guys for your presentation. It was definitely very informative. I like how you have the different angles and everything. give your son props for all of his hard work.
My technical advisor.
Your technical advisor, you give him props for all the hard work that he
I
did.
certainly will.
But yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions. So
Okay.
we'll go ahead and oh, 2 more came in real quick. It says, is there an update in regards to the mandate requiring helmets? That would be an Alex question, I guess.
Yes, it would.
From what I understand, no. We haven't had anything come from the board. The board of directors is the one that would make that change, and we haven't seen any changes so far.
And I'll jump in. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Just to echo what Taylor said, there is no update on that. As we move forward, the headgear mandate is still in place. The Girls Lacrosse Advisory Committee did pass an item, I want to say back in, was it in September when they met? And the Athletic Director Advisory Committee reviewed that item, but tabled it pending a review of all the research that has been done by Dr. Herman and his staff, which I'm sure you guys are aware of what was released at this point. That conversation still has not been had. But what I'll say is with the research that has been released, I don't know if the board would be inclined to make any adjustments to that policy as it stands right now. But that's something that they'll have to discuss after reviewing everything. So that's the current update we have on the headgear.
And then the other question we had was, if there are 2 defenders that are called for shooting space, do they both go behind?
Good question. Technically, they can both go behind. If they're both blatantly in shooting space, technically they both can go behind. Many times one is at least making an attempt to get out, and so we will maybe give them a credit for making the effort and only put one behind. But if there are 2 that are blatantly in shooting space, yes, you can put 2 players behind.
Okay, thank you. Those were the only 2 that had come in. So it is 6:47. We do have a little bit more time that's allotted to us, but we can always wrap it up early if there's not any more. Thank you again for your presentation, and Lou, thank you for your input as well. Definitely valuable to all of our officials here.
Well, thank you, Taylor. And thank
So-
you, Colleen and Alex and Jeremy for putting this together again, as always.
Jeremy is that he had to leave to go. His son made a middle school baseball team, so we had
Nice.
to pop off early, but go ahead and wrap it up and say thank you guys for everything. I'm not sure if we have another one of these scheduled anytime soon. I think there may be some in the future, but maybe for boys. I don't know the exact.
Yeah, we actually have a boys one tomorrow night,
Tomorrow,
but
yeah.
we'll be in contact with everybody as we move forward, and certainly ship out the recording to folks that are on the call, because it was
Perfect.
really good stuff. Colleen was tremendous. I can't wait actually to see the live 3D.
Thanks. That'll
And
be
then-
fun.
This will also be posted to the FHSAA central hub for officials too. So if there are any officials that you guys know of that weren't able to log on tonight, they will have access to this presentation. It probably takes about 24 hours to get it posted.
Great.
Tremendous.
Thank you again, guys, and I will say good night.
Thank you all. Have a great
Thanks.
night.
Good night.
Thanks, Colleen.